Welcome to episode 155 of the Necronama.com. The Necronama.com is proud to announce that we've partnered with the Horror Writers Association and the Stanley Hotel and Gemma Amore and Laurel Hightower to bring you the official StokerCon pre-party. We want you to join us on May 10th, 2022 at the iconic Stanley Hotel, where horror authors including Stephen Graham Jones, Gabino Iglesias, Haley Piper, Gemma Amore, and Laurel Hightower will be reading some of their works. Additionally, the No Sleep podcast will perform a 1-hour live version of their award-winning horror fiction podcast. There will be meet and greets, ghost hunting, and a lot of drinking with authors. You're not going to want to miss it. A link to ticket information and room packages is available in the liner notes of this episode. The Necronama.com is now a proud affiliate of Libsyn, one of the top podcast hosting networks in existence. See this episode's show notes for our unique promo code to get up to 2 free months of podcasting services with Libsyn. Get your show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Get critical audience-building stats and all the support you need to sound your best. They even do video. Bring your podcast to life and have your voice heard here, there, everywhere with Libsyn. Check our show notes for the unique promo code and get podcasting. Now in their 18th year, Fright Rags has been bringing you the best in horror apparel and accessories since 2003. Offering a wide range of products for your favorite creature features, slasher flicks, and cult classics. Officially licensed collections include titles like John Carpenter's The Thing, The Evil Dead, Creepshow, Jaws, the Halloween franchise, and so many more. Head on over to fright-rags.com. Make sure to sign up for their SMS and email newsletter to never miss a drop. Listeners get 10% off when they use the code NECRO10, all caps, at checkout. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now. And this is a very important night. We're going to make a better tomorrow today.
Oh, gosh. All right. And I'm Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of the podcast. And I think the best thing about COVID, or at least the pandemic, is, work from home and not having to worry about wearing pants that might kill you. But then I guess now that everybody's going back, now we have to try and fit back in the pants that we wore prior to the pandemic. And yeah.
That's why you need these pants, so that they'll fit either way.
Yeah.
So Jenny Kiefer is here today.
Welcome.
Jenny, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
So why don't you tell our listeners a bit about yourself and tell us your favorite pair of pants? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm a horror author and a future horror bookstore owner. I just finished Pitch Wars with my novel called That Wretched Valley, which is set in Kentucky, and it features rock climbing, ghosts, a sentient forest that eats people,
Ooh.
A dog that lives.
Nice.
It was inspired by the Jatloff Pass incident, and I'm really excited to hopefully get it out into the world soon, and hopefully it will open this year. My mom and I are trying to start a horror bookstore in Louisville, Kentucky.
Amazing.
It's not set up yet, but we did grab the domain horrorbookstore.com.
Nice.
Oh, I'd love to go there when it's done.
Yeah, if you could open it before the second weekend in July so we can swing by while we're in town, that'd be great.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, what was the... Maybe we can just get a booth at that conference.
You totally should. We'll hook you up.
Oh, 100%.
It's Imaginarium in Louisville, the second weekend of July. It's one of my favorite cons. I have to push it anytime I can, man. So
yeah, our first foray is there's a local like flea market type thing in town called Flea Off Market. And so we're going to have a booth there in April, one Saturday.
That's very cool. So your mom obviously is also into horror. Is she the one that got you interested in horror? Like, is that how it started for you?
Maybe. I know my dad always reads Stephen King. So we, for the bookstore, actually, we have like a huge stack of his old Stephen King books that we'll resell. Yeah, I guess I remember just being in grade school and I would read Goosebumps, which transitioned into like the Fear Street type books.
Yeah.
And then into, I guess, more grown-up horror books. I really like anything that is very gory, and I like there's a lot of body horror featured in my writing. Which maybe is not the most popular for some readers. I think some people even some horror readers are kind of squeamish, but I like it.
Well, like I love it. So they're wrong. No.
Yeah, I can remember renting horror movies when I was in middle school. I think my friend and I rented Child's Play when we were in middle school. And right after I got finished playing, we're in this dark room. We have the screen of the TV is the only bright thing. And I think my dog was like walking towards us in the hall and we both screamed because it looked like Chucky.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I've told this story a couple times on the show, I think, but mine was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I watched it at my cousin's house when I wasn't supposed to. And I was like 10 or something. And then I went home and I was taking a bath and my neighbor decided to chainsaw his tree right then. And I lost it. I was like 10 years old, just bawling in the bathtub. And I couldn't tell my parents why. And so they had no idea what was wrong. And I finally wrote about it in like the acknowledgments of my first novel. And my mom was like, that's what that was. And it was like, 25 years later, she finds out why. So, yeah.
It's amazing.
Don, do you have a moment like that where some movie got to you and stayed with you?
I would say it didn't happen until later in life. I mean, you had the usual stuff when you were a kid, but I think it was more telling, or at least there was a greater impact with movies when I became an adult, because I eventually became desensitized to a lot of horror, where it's kind of like I might have the squeamish parts, like when Hostel first came out and there was a lot of body horror films where you're kind of like, oh God, or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot, not the one that's out now, but the one with Jennifer Beals where, the fingernails are pulled out of the guy out of the person when they're trying to keep from going into the basement area. But yeah, when I was younger, it was stuff like Children of the Corn or Jaws. But that's kind of normal because of my age. But as I got into adulthood, the one that got me was Final Destination. And it wasn't that it got me during the movie as far as like, oh, I'm really freaked out by all the stuff that's happening. It was the week after I saw it, I was looking both ways like 4 times whenever I would cross the street. Like I'm looking for loose wires everywhere. Like I'm looking for anything because I'm thinking like, oh shit, that was weird. Okay. I'm going to go this way. No matter what it was, I'm like, all right, I'm going to be extra cautious about everything. So yeah, that stuck with me for a little bit. And I don't know, there hasn't been anything recently within horror that has gotten to me to that level. I mean, there's definitely been some things where I've gotten caught by a jump scare or two, sure, but nothing to the point where it's like, oh shit, like I'm thinking about this days later, weeks later, or I'm thinking about all these imaginary scenarios that could possibly come up that really couldn't come up, but I, for some reason, think that it's a possibility.
I love that.
I love those movies.
On that note, really fast, every time I get on a plane, I listen to Leaving on a Jet Plane. And I love right. showing my phone to my wife because, she can't hear my earbuds. And I will show it to her every time. And every time she just rolls her eyes and then doesn't.
As she should.
Like 10 minutes.
As she should.
That's a true story.
She should most definitely do that.
So Jenny,
rest in peace, John Denver.
Right? Why'd you choose Slaxx, Jenny?
Well, I did really want to do Ready or Not, but you had already done an episode on that. And I think some of my not that I don't love Slaxx, but some of my other choices weren't streaming anywhere or were, really hard to get a hold of. But I do really love Slaxx. It's a movie that my friend and I watched. And we watch every type of horror movie together. When theaters were open, one of my fondest experiences was that we went to go see The Nun in IMAX.
Oh, nice.
And it was one of the best screening experiences because it was just so hilarious and over the top. I think we pissed off some other people in the theater though, because we were laughing really hard. And I think they were trying to be scared by it, but it was not a scary horror movie. But I love all the Conjuring movies too. But so we saw this on Shudder, and we opened it. It's like the cover is just like a woman putting her hand in the back pocket of a pair of jeans, and the title card is kind of like a metal type font. And so it's very colorful. It's not dark like a lot of horror movie posters are. So we were intrigued and we opened it and we read that it's about like possessed pants. And so we're like, oh, this is going to be terrible. And we watched it expecting it to just be like a B horror movie or, not really have very much substance, just a fun ride with possessed pants. But then it turned out that it's was surprising that it was actually very deep and had a good message in addition to the horror. And the effects are really good. I don't know if the story's well put together. There's all these like little hints or like little snippets in there that are like, if you blink, you'll miss them, that are just so on point with the movie's theme.
No, I went in similarly. I read spoilers for a lot of stuff, and occasionally I randomly pick something, and this was a random pick. And Don can verify that's really, really rare for me. And so I pop it in, and first off, I'm just obsessed with what they did with the pants and the way they move, how like sometimes it looks like it has eyes and a mouth or like different things like that. And I was like, God, this is great. And by the end, I was like, holy shit, this is like such a deeper meaning. Like this film is like the epitome of what I'm trying to write. Like I love ridiculous setting with a shit ton of social commentary and like a lot of actual emotion. And this film just like hits that shit. And it was great. I mean, you don't leave bawling or anything, but like, it makes you feel bad for we get into spoilers either way. It makes you feel bad for the people that were killed making the pants. And it makes you, kind of hate the corporate world even more. And God, it's glorious. What about you, Don? Did you know anything about it going in?
I saw it. Gosh, I can't remember if it was like a Shudder recommendation or you and I had a conversation about it last year, but it was something about ridiculous movies. Maybe it was one of our friends put it on Twitter, and I'm like, a movie about killer jeans. I was like, I don't have anything else to do. I'll watch this shit. And I can't remember if you saw it before me or not, but it was just, I remember us talking about it. I'm like, this was hilarious, stupid, deep, a little bit gruesome. And so there's like, this is exactly what makes horror fun is just the absurdity of so many things to get your attention to something that's more serious. Whereas, if my, and I often do this, if my mom were watching this, if she immediately says like, this is unbelievable, this is just too out there, I'm like, it's a good horror movie then, because that was how she reacted to Train to Busan. That's how she reacted to a bunch of other movies. She's like, it's just hard for me to get into this movie because there's too much stuff that doesn't make sense. And I would sit there and I'm like, well, what about this? What about this? She's like, yeah, but they didn't have to do this weird stuff. I'm like, yes, they did. Yes, they did. They're not going to beat you over the head with the social messages or the discussion that's going to take place. So yeah, I'm going to show, I don't know, I'm going to have a killer pair of pants that's going to be talking about capitalism and talking about worker exploitation and child labor and all these other things. And yeah, there are going to be these goofy moments where it starts dancing to Bollywood music. So,
This pitch meeting had to be amazing. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have been a very enjoyable film if they had chosen to do the theme more straight on.
Yeah.
If they just showed workers sacrificing their money and livelihood in a store and, succumbing to capitalism that way, it just wouldn't make for a good horror film. It would be too real, if you want to put it that way.
Parts of it were too real for me, but
before we get too deep into it, have either of you worked in retail?
Yes.
Okay. In clothing or what aspect?
I've worked all over the place. My first job was in a restaurant where I started as a hostess and moved into waitress or waiting tables. And I worked at Victoria's Secret for not very long. I worked at an ice cream shop for a while.
I worked at Kohl's. You can imagine how well that went.
Oh my God, James.
Victoria's Secret was awful.
No, I was about to.
No, that wins. I'd rather work at Kohl's. Yeah.
I was about to talk to Jenny about us being, I guess, corporately related because of my years at Bath and Body Works. Because when they were doing because it's the same. It's the same company. Mm-hmm. But it was funny when they were doing this whole thing of like, all right, we've got to do our marketing, and my wife watched it for the first time with me today, and it's the part where they're talking about, setting up for the Monday Madness deal or sale or whatever it is. And I think it was Libby was moving some of the articles. I said, you just go faster. And my wife is like, my wife is sitting there. She's like, well, they've got until 8 a.m. I was like, no, they don't. I worked this job before. You get out of there. I mean, yeah, they're going to be locked down. But the thing is, you're going to want to get done as quickly as possible because whoever is your manager, whoever is the assistant manager, sales lead, whatever it is going to have to come back behind you and check whatever you're doing. And if you did it wrong, you got to do it over again. Like I remember having to do all that stuff where it's like, all right, we're going to do our remarketing tonight as soon as we close the doors. And then you would leave, around like 2-3 o'clock in the morning because then the store was fine. Everything was set up the way it was supposed to be done. But even then someone would come in early the next day to make sure everything was done. And don't let it be a regional store visit. Jesus.
Yep. I mean,
yeah.
You unlocked a memory. I think I did one overnight shift at Victoria's Secret. And it was like terrible. I worked there, I think, over a winter break in college. So like when I left, like my car was frozen. I'm like in the mall parking lot trying to scrape my car off all alone, hoping not to get kidnapped or something. I would never want to work that job again. And kudos to the people who do work there.
Yeah. Now I will say this for anybody who's listening. If you haven't worked retail, be nice to the people that work in retail and be nice to the people that serve you your food, because you have no idea the shit that we have to deal with on a daily basis.
Just go get a job at Target for like a week.
Oh, God.
Work there for a week and then you'll know.
I see so many people like posting that Target's paying like $24 an hour or whatever now. And they're like, guess I'm going to quit my job and go work at Target. And I'm like, I've met you in real life. You're not going to survive a week at Target, buddy.
Right.
Well, not to mention that kind of ties into like the film because, they advertise $24 an hour, but that's probably not like the first position that you would get on the floor. And it's probably like a higher manager or something. And that makes me think of like when she's being onboarded, Libby's being onboarded and she has this like huge stack and they keep making mentions of like, she has to buy an outfit. She has to wear CCC apparel. And she says, I am wearing some. And they said, when did you buy it? And she said, last month. And they said, last month was 3 seasons ago.
Right.
So it has to be seasonally appropriate. And apparently it switches out every like 3 times a month. And her outfit that she ended up buying was like $175?
No discount.
No discount. And then later, when they're like carting away one of the Hance's victims, the manager says that he'll waive her mandatory monthly or like employee fee for the clothes or something.
Yep.
So I feel like that's what all of the, signs around now that are like, pay up to $15 an hour or $24 an hour. It's like, well, it's not the starting pay. It's just a little misleading to try to make the company look good.
Well, and even the Target one is like specific markets. So I'm like, yeah, New York or San Francisco or somewhere like that, you might be paying that. But, you're not paying it in, I don't know, Lincoln, Nebraska. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then, like you said, those are probably not the jobs you start at either. So, yeah, I don't know. And that brings me into one of the things that I loved the absolute most about this film, which is the just straight corporate lies, right? Like, and I watched this on the worst possible day because, and my job is nothing like this. Okay. Like it's a nonprofit that helps kids and stuff, but I'm in marketing and development and grants. And so I see like all the corporate-y things that we put out, which are true, but when you see them as much as I do, they get really annoying. Right.
Right.
And so when I watched this and we sat through the videos of the organically sourced and this and that, and I was just like, oh my God, I want to break my TV right now. And I'm not saying like every corporation lies like CCC does, but I don't think anybody's telling the full truth. You know what I mean? So
yeah, all of their jargon, a better tomorrow today, and the belong, be love, believe, become.
I love how none of that means anything.
It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't even really make sense because they split the words. Like the only one that maybe makes sense is be love, but they've split belong, believe, and become into two words. Yep. So they're commanding you to belong, like as in stretched out. Believe, leave is LIEVE is not a word, and become. And, it just doesn't make sense if you think about it for like 3 seconds.
Well, it's like whenever those people meet in marketing, it almost seems as though none of them they associate with real everyday people. Where it almost seems as though it's an echo chamber of like, oh, this is a really good idea. Oh, yes, Johnson, that's a really great idea. Let's go forward with this one. And then you see some of the stuff that comes out. Gosh, what was it? It was T-shirt. I think it was Old Navy. And it said gender neutral shirts is the way they advertised it. Gender neutral shirts. And then they said men's large, women. And then they said gender neutral shirts, women's large. I'm like, you're saying they're gender neutral, but then you're then separating it based off of two. Like
the shirts themselves do not have genitalia, Don.
That's well, I guess you got me there. But then, there's James, you were telling me something about there was some marketing that somebody had passed, either it was a university or some company had basically pushed something so far forward that they didn't think about how it was going to, well, like a lot of marketing, they didn't think about how it was going to be taken. It was something about the messaging. And I can't remember, you sent it to me on Twitter and I immediately said, yeah, this was definitely somebody was not paying attention to what the hell was going on in the world when they did this.
No, that sounds like 90% of the things I said.
Yeah.
Well, no, I was saying that sounds like a lot of the ads as well, where it's kind of like,
there's just so many that none of them stand out.
But the belong, believe, that whole thing you were just talking about, like, and not to insult anybody's religion, but it just felt very religious to me. It's the reciting words without any thought or like this is what we say. We all say it together. And like, oh yeah, watching Libby, especially like she was having like a fucking religious moment with these words, like her face is all lit up. Some of the others are just, and it felt very much like my time in church as a kid where like, I'd look around at everybody and those were the same people I saw, you had the Libbies and you had the whoever. So,
Yeah, they all act like that when Harold shows up,
Right.
though. Like everybody does. And for some reason, when they're like chanting the one shape for all, for some reason that reminded me of Rosemary's Baby, where they say like Shimham Farash, Hail Satan.
Yes.
I guess that's a big Rosemary's Baby spoiler, but
that's all right.
That movie came out in, the late 60s or early 70s. Right.
Yeah. Somewhere.
What's next? You're going to tell us about Bruce Willis being dead the whole time?
What?
No, I'm glad that you brought up the religious angle, because I put in my notes as far as cult behavior and identity wrapped up into branding, wrapped up into retail. So, I mean, you can look at you could expand this beyond just clothing, right? So you do have that moment where Libby is not the excitement of having the new job. It's the excitement of that she's working there.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that even Craig, when Harold shows, I mean, his whole thing is like, oh, I'm going to be the best regional manager. I'm going to be great. Harold shows up and it's kind of like, oh, Harold, I love what or sir, I love what you're doing. He's like, oh, call me Harold. And he calls him Chris at first. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, my name is Craig. He's like, yes, Craig. And you see that moment where it's kind of like the cult leader recognized him, saw him as an individual, and it gave him some self-worth to where you see that as being something that he carries on throughout the rest of the film. Even when Harold's assistant is like, you're not getting that regional manager position. I'll see to it. You see how, so much that is being driven into his identity of like, this is what matters for him. And that's why he goes to the lengths that he does to protect his cult, protect his identity with that. And it's the same thing. I'm sorry, I don't mean to pick on iPhone people. I'm just picking on a specific group of iPhone people. It's like when people wait for, whatever the new iPhone is or iPad, and you see them sitting out there waiting. And as an outsider who's not into whatever it is, or I mean, you could even say like PlayStation 5s or Xbox or anything like that. You see that and you're like, shit, I'll just wait. It's not that important. I don't need to be out there in the freezing cold, or I don't need to camp out, or I don't need to stay out there for a couple of days just for a new phone. Because there was a really good documentary. It was Selfie. And it started with iPhones, and the pandemic hit, and it started covering the pandemic in the United States. But the beginning of the documentary, the beginning of the film was just supposed to focus on America's use of technology and how that type of consumer culture has become our identities. And you see the same thing here where, you could say this was Steve Jobs or Tim Cook, or, even the people who worship Elon Musk. Any of these people that are synonymous with whatever the product is that they sell. You have people that are loyal followers of these people, loyal consumers, to where they will only buy that stuff. And the same thing with this clothing. I'm only going to buy CCC. Like this is me. This is my identity. This is my ecosystem.
Yeah. And I get the ecosystem thing was hilarious to me.
Oh, yeah.
But I also get this sort of sense that it almost feels like it is all marketing, and that, that's kind of revealed later in the film. But even for Harold, who's like the face or the head of it, he's condescending to his employees, and he's, even in his speech, he's very much, like, let's make sure that this goes well, and that this, passes inspection or par or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it almost reminds me of when it came out a while ago that the owner of Urban Outfitters would like donate to really conservative politicians, while Urban Outfitters is like, projecting this idea of, I guess, liberalism in some way, like being eco-friendly, kind of like CCC. And right. it's kind of like Harold reminds me of that sort of mindset where, it's like what are Harold's motives? He's not really in the film for very long, but yeah, you're right. He is kind of like this cult commercial figure and face for this brand, but who knows what he's actually using all of his money for.
I kind of like that. That's just such a good comparison with the Urban Outfitters thing, because that gives the same feel. And when you get into the craziness of how they keep saying like this is all organically, whatever. I'm going to fuck it up. But, like they keep claiming that they do it one way and then they have no idea how it gets there, And I feel like that really fits in with that Urban Outfitters thing where it was like, oh, we claim we do all these things, but then, hey, I'm over here doing the direct opposite and you have the receipts to prove it, So yeah, I love that comparison. Thank you for saying that.
Well, it's not just that. You also have to factor in that even if you do call these people out on it, right? Those followers then get behind it as well. And they're kind of oh, no, that's not true. That's not what you said. That's not what he actually said. You're taking it out of context. So they built up such a strong brand loyalty that their followers, even in the face of stuff that has been, criminal or immoral, they will still come forward and say, defend whoever that is. I mean, look at, I mean, I'm going to get more into it later, but I mean, get in, even with the Kardashians, this in the past couple of weeks they've done where they're talking about, you need to work hard. No one wants to work. And everybody who actually has a job is looking, I'm like, what do you do for a living? We actually work. But then their fans are like, you don't understand how hard it is to be her. She's in the public eye and she has this and she has this. I'm like, no, it's not the same thing. You can't come out talking badly about working people and claim they don't work hard because they're not a billionaire like you, when your life has been completely staged to the point where people will buy your image and believe everything that you say.
Well, and she's also like born into wealth.
Yes, you got generational wealth that's carrying her over. Yeah,
generational wealth is a whole conversation in and of itself. We should do a whole episode on that one day, man.
What's the general? Shit. Would The Purge be the general? I can't say that. I don't know what phrase I'm looking for anymore. Generational wealth movie. I mean,
you have Ready or Not. You already mentioned that.
There you go. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there's so many that would go in that line. Jeez.
Yeah.
I don't know where the fuck I was going with that. Sorry.
I want to talk about the so I think it's almost like not the very first scene. So the first scene is where they're in the cotton field, but the first scene in the store, we see that poster, "Employee theft hurts us all."
Yes.
And it's in several places. It's like on a sign in the background as the employee is putting the pants away. And then it's in the bathroom twice. On the women's bathroom, it's like across the mirror at the top. And then it's also on a poster next to the door or something.
Is it? Oh, man. I noticed the big one, but I didn't see that one. Wow.
Huh. I just thought that was like a really blatant, like here's the theme of the movie. But, it's like, definitely something that I would have seen in the break room at Victoria's Secret. And, it's definitely not true.
We had them when I worked at Walmart too. I didn't add that to my retail thing because I worked in the deli and that wasn't really the same. But they were everywhere, like in all the break rooms and stuff like that. Just something very similar to the employee theft hurts us all, but not those exact words.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, it's the company projecting and this idea still with that, like tied into that identity of like yourself as the employee. I highly doubt that CCC is, doing profit shares with their employees.
Right.
I know Victoria's Secret didn't do profit sharing with the employees when I worked there. So it's just like a very disingenuous sign and it's just everywhere.
It's always nice to tell your employees how much you don't trust them, isn't it? And also, what does it say about your business practices if you know that your prices are so high your employees can't afford it?
Well, and it's also like, it's just a culmination of things. The employees can't afford it, but they have to wear it. And right. they have like a monthly payment plan that they have to have as a part of being an employee. So yeah, it's like if you don't pay your workers well enough that they have to wear your product, of course they're going to think about stealing it or steal it.
God, that's crazy.
Again, that gets into that cult behavior. Like you have to have this if you want to belong. Mm-hmm. You have to have this if you want to be here. Because I wonder what would have happened to if you have somebody like Shruthi, right? That I imagine that she basically she bought whatever she felt like wearing, as part of the, from CCC, and to just change it up whenever she felt like it, as opposed to, I'm going to wear today's, today's colors, or whereas you see some of the other people like Lord and Hunter, Gemma, they seem all in as far as like, this is, I'm gonna stay on brand. I'm gonna keep wearing my stuff. I'm gonna wear this stuff that we're supposed to be wearing for this season. Whereas I see Shruthi is kind of like, I don't give a shit. I bought this 2 years ago. It's my money. Like, I'm gonna keep wearing it. So, and I think that she understands, or at least she would be more understanding of the conversation that we're having about, it doesn't make sense for you to have to buy this stuff routinely to keep your job at this place. Plus, I think, at least with Shruthi's presentation, I think Craig would probably say something to her, and then she would just be like, fuck off, and keep going about her life. She's like, what are you gonna fire me because I didn't wear, whatever we were supposed to wear on February 7th?
She definitely seems like she has the healthiest work life of anybody in the store. There's one point where she has like an alarm on her phone to tell her when to take a break, and she just drops what she's doing and goes to the break room. She wears headphones because she's like, there's no customers in the store, so why not?
Yeah.
She fascinates me. Like, I'd like to know why she works there, because she doesn't seem like she's not obsessed with it. She's not trying to have the in fashion like Lord, I don't know. I'd love to know more of her backstory. Obviously that would make this a weird movie, but
I mean, I guess I would just chalk that up to like, she's needed a job and that was the one she got. That's kind of why I worked at Victoria's Secret. I didn't care about the employee discount or the products there. I just needed a job over winter break and they were hiring.
Absolutely. What do you got in your notes, Don?
Oh man, I got so much here. Because I already talked about the all night store. Well, going back to Shruthi, at least the making this bridge from Shruthi, these jobs, and I'll say primarily in retail. I mean, I'm never going to go back to Bath and Body Works. So if they think that I'm talking badly about them, then oh well. But I don't get how people in an office setting, as far as like the HQ or the home office, make these decisions about, all right, well, we need to have this retail out. We need to change it for Monday. So we're going to have people stay in late on a Sunday night to change everything over. Like what we ended up doing was we found ways to shortcut, having to stay late. So if the store was slow, we're like, all right, we're going to change this corner of the store while customers are here. All right, well, we're going to change this corner right after that so people don't have to stay late. Because even though they would make the argument of, well, we're paying you. Because, I mean, I got paid very good for 2001, 2002, 2003. I was getting like $14, $15 an hour as an assistant manager there. And I had people that were working for me that were making $5, $6 an hour, which, even for the time was decent. But you're still having people that would end up coming in, staying up late. You've got people that are going to school. You got people that have families, and these are irregular hours. Whereas in this movie, because of the type of service or the type of industry it is, everyone there is young. They're either all late teens, early 20s, except for Craig, and of course, except for Harold and his assistant. But what you get the idea of is they're being taken advantage of as well, because they may not have had all those same priorities as far as going to school or having a family at home waiting for them, things like that, to where I didn't really see anybody complaining about, oh, we're going to stay late. We're going to stay and work through the night. We're going to be locked down in the store. No phones, no contact with the outside world, because we're going to be putting out these super exclusive jeans, which, if you get into the plot, it doesn't make sense. Like, why are the jeans? Like, nothing's going to be interesting about the jeans other than, oh my gosh, it's a new cut. Because even if you say, oh, these jeans, that they'll fit you no matter what your body size is or body shape is, it seems like people already know that, because even the YouTuber, the Instagram creator, she even points that out. She's like, I've been waiting for these for months, as if she knew what they were about. And she didn't want to hesitate in live streaming to her followers as she tried on the jeans. But it's interesting how many people are being taken advantage of, to where, this individual, Jules, I forgot her first name.
Peyton.
I almost called her Poodles. Yeah. How Peyton has taken advantage of all of her followers, which if you follow enough people on Instagram, or at least the right people on Instagram, you'll see how other creators on Instagram, or Instagrammers or models or whatever, like, it's complete bullshit. The whole image itself is complete bullshit that they create. All the way from people like Olivia Jade, who, was famous for her mom lying to get her into college, all the way up to like the Kardashians. Like, that's not their real lives day to day. I'm sorry, that's not a real person's life day to day. That's their life. That's not something that you can attain unless you have generational wealth, unless you have, marketing teams, unless you have personal trainers or stylists or anything like that. Because the average person that might see those videos look at it and say, like, oh my God, those jeans are going to be great. I need to have those jeans. My life will be perfect, or I'll be cool, or I'll be sexy, or I'll be interesting, or whatever. And it's just all bullshit.
Mm-hmm. It's just a pair of jeans at
the
end of the day. But I kind of wonder if the lockdown thing goes back more to like that employee theft idea, rather than like, I don't know why they would lock down. They think somebody's going to like rob the store while they're putting these pants out.
Well, but even then, like, Craig had them locked away, so they weren't coming out until it was time until everything else was done. The jeans weren't supposed to come out, but I think what was it, Gemma? He immediately knew that Gemma took the jeans. He's like, oh, damn you, Gemma.
He didn't fight her very hard.
No.
No.
That would have been an interesting moment where if you did have somebody that was the only thing that was missing was, I'm sure it happens off screen at the end of the film, but I would just love a moment where somebody was fighting someone else for a pair of jeans.
That'd be pretty great.
And it wasn't even the killer jeans.
Well, they were having trouble fighting each other for the jeans, because the jeans were killing everybody in the store. Although if you watch until the very end of the credits, there is an employee who comes out and he's like, where is everybody?
Oh my God. I thought I watched because I was watching the behind, like they were showing the green screens and everything. Damn it. I missed that. I did not see that part.
Yeah,
I did not see it either.
It's literally like the very last thing. The credits finish, and then there's this like end scene where I don't know where he was. I remember seeing him at the very beginning, but I don't remember him like saying he was going anywhere. But he like comes out of a dressing room and he's just like, Hunter, Craig, where is everybody?
Oh, that's great.
That makes it even better. Okay, here's the other thing I had in my notes. And this is something that pisses me off about, I guess it's the piss me off hour.
That's all our show is. So
this is something that irks me about corporate world, businesses, retail, restaurants, or whatever, right? I think Harold said this, or Craig, I can't remember which, but they said, we take care of our own. And that was way too close to we're a family. Mm-hmm. Where every place I've worked, I've heard those words, except for the current place where I'm working and my current university. Like, I have not heard that come out, because the people that are with those employers, with those universities, have never said that, have never come out of their mouths, because they understand, like, you have a family. We're not your family. We're coworkers. We're in academia. We're scholars. Like, this is like, go take care of your shit. Like, take care of stuff that matters outside of here. Whereas other places, movie theater, retail, food places, whatever, I've heard that same line of like, we're a family here. And that's a great way that businesses, companies, stores, whatever, will take advantage of you because they immediately want to guilt you into, I mean, almost like cult or like a toxic relationship. We're going to say these things that are going to make you feel guilty about wanting anything for yourself while you're here. Like you've got to sacrifice for the greater good. You got to sacrifice for this company. Yeah, you got to stay late here, but if you don't stay late, then our customers are not going to be able to have the best experience. And if our customers don't have the best experience, then people are going to stop shopping here. And if people stop shopping here, you're going to be out of a job because we're going to have to shut down. Is
that what you want, Don?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Or if your store doesn't do well enough, we'll have to shut your store down, because we used to have, again, this is when I was there. This is 20 years ago. We used to have to track several different metrics every day. Right. We had like hourly sales as far as the amount, the total amount. And then we had ADS. We had average dollar sales. And we had these goals that had to be met, which if I stick with Bath and Body Works, okay, the lotion, body wash, whatever, always like $8, $9, $10, whatever. And HQ would send in these things saying like, oh, well, your store performed at this level last quarter, so now you need to have an average dollar sale of $22 an hour, or your entire district has to have this amount. And then they would rank you within your districts. And every month, it was almost like they would shame the stores by saying, oh, well, our top 3 stores were X, Y, and Z. And, these stores, they really, their ADS dropped 5% or 8% or whatever. And I'm thinking, I'm like, this is a college town. When the college students aren't here, we ain't selling shit. So be like, well, it's summer. You had your biannual sale in the summer and the sales didn't go up. I'm like, our ADS didn't go up because you started making shit 99 cents. So we can't, it's not going to work out the same way. So it became one of those ways of, oh, you should be touching. And this is the weird part of this. You should be touching X amount of customers every hour.
You should not touch customers
every shift. So, and they were like, and the thing is, it became one of those things where I found myself doing that as well, where I would tell like whoever's on my team, which again was one of those cool language plays. I would tell anybody who was on my team, I'm like, how many people did you come into contact with? Because I was a little uncomfortable telling, people to go touch someone. But I would tell them like, how many people did you come into contact with? How many people did you talk to? What did you do? And what I see in this film is the same thing. Like I can already see how their day is going to be when they make their sales, as far as like, I'm over in the green. I'm going to just go by the colors. I'm over in Lord's area where it's green, or I'm over in Hunter's area where it's blue. So the blue area, the blue ecosystem versus the green ecosystem. So you can see how they would probably even start, come into conflict over whose zone was selling better, and then determining bonuses based off of that. And as you brought up, Jennifer, the whole idea of profit sharing, right? You're telling me to do all this shit to boost sales, but I get nothing of that. I just basically get to keep my job if we do well. And that was one of those things that I hated about that job. There were so many things I loved about it, but the whole idea of you're telling me I need to do all these things, but then there's no incentive for me to do them other than you're going to come in and wag your finger, or we're going to get a visit. And then somebody's going to say like, well, what have you been doing? How come the numbers are down? We're not getting that money. The guys in the office who are telling us to do marketing overnight on a Sunday or a Saturday or Christmas Eve was my favorite one.
Oh, geez.
Oh, fuck that.
Yeah. They're like Christmas Eve, you would stay overnight. Because you close early, but you stay late to redo the marketing because there would be a sale the day after Christmas. Yeah.
Jeez.
I hate retail. I will not bother anybody by going to Black Friday sales, after Christmas sales, any of that stuff, because once you do it, you realize how toxic it is.
Yep. Absolutely.
But we're a family.
The The touching thing the interacting thing you mentioned is worse because it was Bath and Body Works. So I'm just imagining like crop dusting people with cucumber melon spray as they walk through the store.
I have PTSD of so many fragrances.
Every now and then I just write Dawn and I'm like, juniper breeze.
Wow. Wow. Why don't you say
that reaction?
Why don't you say plumeria while you're at it?
Because juniper breeze is the only one I remember.
Did they still have a lot of glitter and everything when you worked there?
When I was there, they did, but it was for the kids stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a good ride. Which, you know what, I would have also liked in this movie if you did have that moment of, oh, we're worried about somebody stealing, the whole employee theft hurts us all.
Mm-hmm.
I would have loved for like somebody who had just been fired, who knew that the jeans were coming in and tried to steal them. And they ended up dying because they stole them. So
I feel like that would be off message though to the movie.
Well, it would be fun though.
It would be fun.
What if they got fired at the beginning and then they were the only ones left?
Yeah.
No, damn it. I don't want, that's probably what happened with that guy. He was hiding from Harold.
Employee theft.
It kind of gave a vibe of like he went into the dressing room to like smoke weed or something and came out and everybody was dead. But I don't remember if he like said he was going to go do anything in the dressing room. Maybe Craig just said, go clean up the dressing room. And he was it took so long. It took the entire night for him to clean up the dressing room.
I mean, if you let me do that, and then you never were like, does anybody have eyes on James? I would stay in there. I don't want to fucking come out and help you.
Oh my gosh, that was the eyes on people. Like that was the best gag to me in the whole movie. How they're like talking on their little headset, like, Hunter, do you have eyes on Gemma? And it's like a split screen, and then it just zooms out, and she's standing like 3 feet behind him.
Loved that.
And also how like the headsets, like everybody can just hear everybody's message. So like when Gemma was going to the bathroom and Craig's like, where are you going? Just everybody can hear that whole conversation.
Quick fun fact for you. I don't know if you're aware, Jenny, but the actress who played Gemma is in Ready or Not.
Is she?
Oh,
she is the maid that gets shot by my favorite character, Emily. Emily's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me in movie history. But
I like the guy who was texting like, it's like, are packs with the devil real? I forget his name.
Oh yeah, he was Googling.
Yeah.
How to use a crossbow. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thought that was, I was just looking at the cast and I was like, oh shit, I have to mention this because he brought up Ready or Not.
Yeah. It was a little weird watching it because the actress who plays Libby looks like this girl that I went to grad school with. So like the whole movie, I'm just like, is this my friend that went to grad school with?
That's pretty great. If it had been, you should have brought her on the show with you. No, just kidding. I'm kidding.
This is Kentucky, not Canada.
Put that on a shirt while you can. Otherwise, Laurel Hightower will try to steal it from you. No. I love Lord as well. Like this guy reminds me of so many people that I worked with, especially at places like Kohl's and Walmart. And I'm always fascinated by somebody like Lord, who's at this place where, again, no, I don't mean any offense to anybody that works retail, but don't take it this fucking seriously. It is not life. And Lord was one of those characters I would have liked to see in way more scenes, but I don't know. Coming back to that employee theft hurts us all. I think that really hits a great note as well, when the whole point of the film is somebody who is replaceable as far as the corporation is concerned is killed getting the cotton to make the pants, and no one even cares. And so it adds that extra level of it's all about the money, because it's, if you steal this, we lose money. But people are literally dying for it and nothing.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to the very end where Libby is trying to hold the doors closed. Like she's trying to save people from these, possessed pants. And there's like a whole army of them at this point. And so she's trying to like hold them back, but she doesn't die from the pants. She dies from, I guess, the other side of capitalism, of like the consumer side of capitalism is what kills her.
I loved that. This ending is so perfect to me. There's the whole, she's our final girl. She's made it. And then she tries to do the right thing. And, we're all horrible. It doesn't matter which side we're on, like you just said.
Yeah. And even then, because I think about the, the Karit and Shruthi and Libby, at least the people that are trying to do that, that are victims of this, because, Shruthi gets killed by Craig because she wants to do the right thing. Libby gets killed because she's trying to stop people from getting killed. And Karit gets killed because she's just doing her job. And her head and her wrap gets caught in the thresher. And I saw this, and I didn't think about this the first time I watched it, but I thought about it this time. Harold is unpunished. Like there's no punishment for it, which is very, very telling. But he goes unpunished in this film. I'm sorry, in life for that matter. He basically gets rewarded because I guarantee you the outcome would be, if somebody did report on all these bodies that were found at the store, he would probably have a PR firm control the story, control the narrative, and make it seem like, I get. In fact, it would play out like this, much like Black Friday news coverage. It's, oh my God, so many people had to have these jeans. They all killed each other over them. And then now your jeans become so much more popular because they have legendary status of, oh my God, people were willing to kill each other for these jeans. No one's going to think some jeans were going around killing people. It was obviously all these consumers showed up, were fighting each other, because you can look at things like, Cabbage Patch Dolls, or, if you cut in line, no, I shouldn't even say cut in line, but if somebody assumes that you cut in line at the iPhone store, the Apple store, or any other toy or something that comes up where it's in high demand, low supply, I could easily see this being the same thing of like, we're going to go ahead and claim that something else is responsible for this other than our decisions as a company.
Yeah, and the last shot is like the USB, like the jump drive, or like the SD card in her hand, in Libby's hand, but it's so small that, yeah, I think I agree. They would probably find that or hide the footage or just destroy that card. It kind of like hinted that maybe like someone would find the card, but I just think it's so small. But I'm also a pessimist, so I
don't think anybody would think to look at it. That's the thing. Like, it's there. But who's going to, other than possibly the police? But even then, that's not something that they would look at and say like, oh, well, we found an SD card in her hand or on the floor. One, who's to say that it's going to survive? Because somebody, again, might have stepped on it. Maybe I mean, what, as far as with all this, or the blood everywhere might damage the SD card, or the police coming in might step on it and crush it. So there's no telling that the footage would even survive if they were even willing to look at the SD card, because they're going in and if there was any blood any blood or bodies that were left by the jeans, I don't think they would look at it, as far as like, we need to figure out what's on this SD card. They're going to go and try and find the security cameras. They're going to try and find anything else they can to determine what happened in there. If they even if any blood or body parts were left out in the open.
Yeah. And I wonder if the security cameras were even running. Well, I guess they were, because Craig was looking at them all the time.
It doesn't mean they're recording though.
That's
true.
I feel like that was my reaction. I was like, this card probably just got thrown in a box marked evidence, and that's it. Like, nobody ever looked at it again, or I want a sequel, so I think that's a great way to bring it in. But
I read an article that they were doing something called Slaxx 2, but it wasn't about the pants. So it was like a similar premise, but also totally different. I don't remember what it said. I was kind of, I guess, because I was kind of disappointed when I saw Slaxx 2, and then it was just like something else.
Slaxx 2, the Electric Boogaloo.
I'll be open to it. I'll try it out. Bring it.
I definitely want to watch it.
We've kind of danced around it a little bit, but the whole point of this is that worker exploitation, sweatshops, whatever you want to call it, this pretty young girl is picking cotton to make the pants and all that stuff and gets sucked in and killed. And it's so not overlooked in the film, but I feel like it's a really good link to really resonate with the audience. Mm-hmm. We don't see like a ton of people so that we don't like lose that identity. Mm-hmm. We see a person or two, and that message hits so much harder for me because of that. It like individualized it more, I guess I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But what I really like about it is it's explained to the audience the right way, going through mm-hmm. the communication with Shruthi. Is that her name? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I loved everything about how they went about explaining the backstory. Mm-hmm. I thought it was really well done, but also this is the piece that emotionally resonated with me throughout this film. Like I made a comment at the beginning that this was way deeper emotion than I expected. And that's the part I'm talking about. Like it made mm-hmm. me really think, like I look around even right now, I'm talking into a microphone. I'm staring at a computer screen. I'm like, I have so much stuff in this room. Like what pain and suffering did somebody go through for me to have any of these things? Mm. And that's been like fucking with me since the first time I saw this film. So I don't know. I love the emotional range and yet how easily, maybe it wasn't easy for them, but how easily it comes through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's, one of my favorite shows is The Good Place, and kind of the theme of that show is just there's no ethics under capitalism. And I think that's probably also the theme of this film too, because I mean, not only is there that theme of how they're hurting all of their employees from, the Kiefer who dies in the field and they, don't even really record it. But all the way to just the company's greenwashing. So they say it's like, no GMO, organic, no, they say that all of their employees, even like in India or overseas, are compensated appropriately. And then we learned that that's not. And it kind of reminds me of like something that happens a lot now, where companies will have a product that's like basically plastic and they'll say like compostable, but then there's this tiny asterisk and it says in commercial facilities only.
Right.
So like, it's not really compostable because most people don't have access to commercial composting facilities. So it's just, and you can't recycle it. So it's the same as plastic, but it makes the company look good. And I think even some restaurants who use those things don't know that. They just think that they're like, I guess a victim of the greenwashing too, as they see compostable and they think it's better.
And I think there's even some companies that mean well. And I kind of liked how that was sort of touched here too. It was, well, we don't know, and I think there's companies that do think they're helping somehow, but they don't actually hit the level that they think they are. Mm-hmm. And I'm definitely not defending corporations by any means. Anybody that knows me knows that's not my thing. But I see it a lot on an individual level where we think we're helping with something and maybe we don't fully understand it or different things like that. So I think that you hit something really good right there where you said maybe they've been greenwashed too. And man, I think that's a super important thing to look at.
There's just like so many things coming at you all at once. It's hard to know. For a while, I didn't know that most compostable things that say compostable weren't actually compostable. We would like put them in our backyard compost. And then later we're like getting the dirt for our garden. And there's just all this like all of the plastic still there.
Mm-hmm. Man, it's crazy.
Right now I'm sitting there, I'm like, damn it, what do I have?
Dawn is 100% compostable, just so you know.
Yes, all humans are, damn it. Well, if you look at it, I mean, speaking of compostable human beings, I mean, the genes are recycling the humans. They're putting them to use. I mean, the genes are the greenest thing in this movie.
with their experimental cotton.
Oh no. I mean, as far as like they're exercising like eco-friendly solutions to get rid of the human beings.
That is true. The genes did not leave very much behind.
And if they did, look, I mean, even in the case of Gemma, they tucked her away in a nice place to where she could be found. They didn't just throw her out in the street. They didn't.
I love that they took the time to put her somewhere.
I spent half the movie watching my wife's reactions to things. I have not heard her laugh at a movie as she laughed with this one in a while. Because especially when it got to the Bollywood scene, as far as like the genes dancing along, and I kept telling her, I was like, just wait, it gets better, watch, you're not done laughing, it's gonna get even better. And it was that scene and a couple other ones where she's like, what the fuck is going on? And she just laughed. She's like, this is hilarious, this is great. I was like,
I love when Craig and Libby are looking at the body. And Craig's like, you think there's a killer out there? And she looks at the body. She's like, yes, I think there's a killer out here.
And then Craig's like, I think she did that to herself.
That was what got me. It's like she's had a lot of body issues. Like obviously she has body issues now because she's split in two.
I'd like to cut myself open in half and then tuck myself under here.
Oh, and the best part of that scene though was where he says, "Are you afraid? Do you want everyone else to be afraid? That's not really showing team spirit."
Yes.
Oh my God. Yes.
What
were you going to say, Don?
Oh no, I was going to say the other part that got me because it caught me I caught it the first time and I made sure to catch it the second time was when Harold was giving his whole speech about the was it Slim Shapers or I forgot what? Gosh, now I forgot the name of the jeans.
Super Shapers.
It also throws me off because the logo is way too close to the SS logo. Mm-hmm. So
that was the only thing to me that stuck out as like maybe being a little bit too on the nose. I felt like everything else was like pretty subtle, like the sign at the very beginning is like experimental field 357, which I assume is how her, Kirat sort of became or possessed the genes because the cotton was experimental. But yeah, I go back and forth on it. I like how it like filled in, the stitches filled in as it killed people. But I think for me, the SS was a little bit too on the nose.
Yeah. Cause when Harold is talking about them, he makes that comment and says, oh, these jeans are for anybody's shape. They're, I can't remember if he said they were gender inclusive, but he talked about how, they're gender inclusive. They fit any body shape, whether you're five pounds under your weight or 5 pounds over. And I'm sitting there like, holy shit. Like they perfectly captured what the clothing industry is.
Oh yeah.
And it's the whole idea of like, these are the sizes that you should be. Which I don't know what the figures are now, but in addition to the pink tax, there was also the expenses, and this probably goes into the pink tax, but there was the expenses that go into women's clothing to have them altered because of the way clothing companies make the clothing to where it's certain shapes that they are making them for, as opposed to making, like men's clothing is very general. Men's bodies are very basic. You have some variations here and there, but there are a lot more variations with women's bodies than there are with men's bodies, typically, or feminine bodies as opposed to masculine bodies. And what got me, even with this, is that clothing companies go even further than just playing with the shapes, because Peyton makes that comment of like, oh, I'm a size 0. And depending on where she's buying the clothing is going to determine what a 0 looks like.
Yep.
And what clothing company or store she's buying it from. And then sometimes by what mall or what location she's buying the clothes is going to determine it, for somebody who's a 0, like what a 0 is going to be, or somebody who's a 7, or even these ideas that, these numbers are a woman's ideal body size, body shape, whatever. So much so that we've gone back. I shouldn't say we, people in the clothing and fashion industry have gone back and reclassified certain people's sizes historically. You know, people like Marilyn Monroe or Audrey Hepburn or someone who would be, you know, seen as an iconic figure within fashion, within history, within style. And that even doesn't even include, like, you know, body alteration. I promise I'm not going to talk about the Kardashians anymore, but you know.
Well, it's almost even worse. I know this is especially a problem with jeans, but even just the way that they're manufactured is can affect the size, because they basically like stack the denim and then they have these blades come down. So I think it's the pieces on the top are a little bit will be cut smaller than the pieces on the bottom, because as it cuts, the blades kind of like the fabric makes the blades kind of flare out. So that's probably why there's different, like a 0 and 1 mall might be different than a 0 and a different mall, because it's dependent on which part, like which area of the stack of fabric you got.
I did not know that. That's pretty fascinating. I always just think it's weird. Like, I can go online and order pretty much any clothes and they'll probably fit when they arrive because I'm a guy and that's how it works, you know? And then my wife is like, I have to go to the store. I have to try on like 2 things in the supposed same size and they'll fit differently. And that blows my fucking mind. I don't know. And then she still won't have pockets. I don't know why women can't have pockets.
Because we have to buy purses.
That's true. But yeah, no, I dated a girl in college who was a 00. I didn't even know that was a thing. So like, there's even like made up numbers in the fashion industry. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I only know of the 00 because a friend of mine from high school was, or is, I mean, she's like a tiny human being. She made the comment about being a 00, and someone then made a comment to her where she said, well, why don't you eat more? And she was like, that's not a problem. Like, she eats more than I do. Like, it's just her metabolism will not let her, grow or gain weight or anything like that. And so she's like, I'm fine being a 00. like, why are you, trying to impose this, whatever your expectations are on me, as far as how my body should look. She's like, I'm perfectly fine the way I am. Like, I eat whatever the hell I want. It's just like, I don't gain anything. And of course, then there were a couple of comments. It was like, well, it must be nice. And she's like, it's not my fault. Like, this is the way I was born. Like, but she said, like, when we were growing up, she said the hardest thing for her was like finding clothes that fit, or at least being able to find clothing in certain styles that fit her body, because she was a 00.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've been, during lockdown, I've gained a little bit of weight, but in the past, I have been a very small person, and I don't think there, at least for women, I don't think there's any size that's really considered acceptable. Because if you're small, then you're too skinny. Right. You don't have any curves, but if you're bigger, then you need to lose weight, and it's just this whole big thing. There's no pleasing anybody.
I've never looked into it. Do either of you know which gender has assigned these sizes and these expectations? Anyway.
James, was that a rhetorical question?
Oh, yeah. That was a blatant, I hate the world question.
I think there's a long history of men trying to control women's bodies.
What? This is the first I'm hearing about it. Jesus. Please don't start talking about Texas, Don. Let's just move on. So,
I have a moratorium on Texas talk.
That could be a whole episode too. We'll do Texas horror, but we'll just cover the news. Anyway, but yeah, it's always just crazy to me how blatant it is that, I was saying, like, I can just go online and pick out clothes because that's how men's clothes work. And then women's work this way. And I'm like, that's nuts, because men are the one who assigned this. And they were just like, oh, well, it has to be easy for me, but it should be really fucking hard for you. And that's nuts to me. And
here's what it comes down to. And this is honestly one of the arguments that has been made and can pretty much be verified with the programming. It all comes down to men wanting women to be smaller than them. So you impose these sizes, shapes, whatever the body shape is that men will deem as like, this is a woman that's smaller than me, perfect. So that women will then have unhealthy body images and unhealthy relationships with food, so that these men who are already insecure then make women insecure about who they are. So these men can be more, I don't know, more secure in their insecurity and being able to control women in that way, to where these women will be more preoccupied with their insecurities to notice the flaws in these assholes. Because I forgot the name of the paper, but there was one about, it talked about why men of a certain height and weight preferred women of a certain size and weight. And it was substantially smaller. And even people on the radio, I'm not going to, and podcasting and stuff like that have comment about women's bodies, where they're saying a woman's body ideally should be around no more than 120 pounds. And I've been in the game long enough to where I know that 120 pounds on 5 different people looks differently. 200 pounds looks 200 different ways on 200 different people. And there's no way you can tell me that there's an ideal weight based off of gender or gender identity, because there is no such thing as an ideal weight for a guy. Now, if we're talking about sports or something like that, you can say like, oh, well, the ideal body for a basketball player is 6'9", 225, 230 pounds. Okay, we can make an argument about that as far as we talk about speed, we talk about athleticism, getting to dunk a ball or whatever it is, right? But when you're talking about the ideal body size for a woman, that's not something that can be debated. That's not something that can be discussed, because a lot of times it's coming from the male gaze as far as like, this is what I want a woman to look like, as opposed to this is what is healthy for a woman to be, as far as like physically healthy and mentally healthy, as far as like the body image or the understanding of one's identity is not wrapped up in what their body looks like.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that at all.
Oh no, I heard some argument or some discussion the other day about like, it's the same dudes who run around talking about, if I'm a man, the ones who like clap their hands while they're doing their podcast. I'm a man. If I'm paying for dinner, then you better do X, Y, and Z. Oh, and if I'm a man and we're going out, you better not have an Instagram showing your body off. I'm like, what the fuck kind of guys are you? Like, right. What the fuck who hurt you? And why are you trying to hurt other people?
Really fast, you mentioned how 120 looks different on 5 different people. Any weight, that's obviously true. But I just want to throw out, I've cut down slightly, but I used to be the same weight as The Rock. And
Jesus Christ.
And, that's where I'm going to leave it. But I'm just saying, not the same.
And where does everybody get that number 120? Because even like as a woman, when I was younger, that was like the weight that I strived for. I don't know where that number comes from, but
I don't know
like
either.
Weird universal number.
That's the number I always hear when these guys start talking about a woman's body. It's like, she should be 5'4", no more than 5'4", because then of course, then you have the guys who are like, well, if I want to have D1 football players, I need to find a woman who's 6'2" and 190, 210. I'm like, what? Just shut up. Just shut up. It's like, basically what you're saying is, no woman wants me, and I'm going to talk down about women until I find one that is self-conscious enough to where I can then make her more self-conscious to where she'll finally give in and take me as a lover.
No, I never thought about it, but you're right. 120 comes up a lot. I've heard it my whole life as well, and I've never really thought about it till right now. 120 has never been a goal for me. I don't think I was 120 when I was born, so I can't imagine how women feel every day hearing that shit. But yeah, like when you said it, I remember my mom saying 120 all the time when I was growing up. That's crazy.
I've already got a dissertation topic. I'm not going to do this one.
Just write 2. That's what dissertations are for. Write like 5 of them.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. What else do you guys got?
I pretty much have nothing left. And I'll just leave it at that.
A few things, but I'm not sure if we've already gone over them. So so when Hunter puts on the pants, you can see they like hypnotized her. Like there's, swirlies in her eyes. So
yeah,
kind of wondering like, did they do that to everyone? Or it seems like they did it with Hunter and Lore, but I'm not sure if they did it with Gemma.
I don't remember it doing with Gemma.
I don't think so. Because like the way she reacts in the stall, she's the one killed in the stall, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, but she cut her finger when she put on the pants. So I wonder if that like activated its lust for blood.
Ooh, maybe. But yeah, like she doesn't react in a way that shows that she's hypnotized or whatever you want to call it. Huh. I thought it was weird how that never came up again. Like it's never explained. I don't need everything explained, but it was a weird thing to throw out there and then do nothing with.
Yeah, it was. I think it's maybe just like a metaphor of like everybody is so excited or obsessed with these pants, but maybe it's really that there's like a more supernatural explanation.
Well, plus like with somebody like Lord, Hunter less than Lord, but the idea that Lord is now seeing these for the first time, and like he's already heard about them, and this is what their big night is all about, or their day is about, but their night of working overnight is about. So, since he's already, keyed in as far as the fashion and things like that, so it may have just been that representation of, oh my gosh, this is like Willy Wonka's golden ticket. This is awesome. I want to be able to wrap myself in these, or like my childhood growing up, I wanted a pair of the Back to the Future 2 sneakers. I wanted a pair of those. I wanted a pair of PF Flyers. I wanted a pair of the Ripley Reeboks from Aliens. So there definitely been moments where there was some technological device, whether that was like a Game Boy or a Super Nintendo or whatever, or a piece of fashion where we've all kind of looked at and like, oh my God, that is so awesome. And then, you get it and eventually the novelty wears off. Or in this case, they kill you before you have a chance to realize it's just a pair of pants. I mean, these obviously aren't just a pair of pants, but, in reality, you would look at it and say, like, it's just a pair of pants. Like there's nothing inherently that should make me look at it and say, this is what my life has been leading toward.
There's a commercial I keep seeing on Hulu because Hulu plays the same ads, and it's Ewan McGregor walking around being like, will we ever say that we regret not buying the newest phone or the largest TV, or will we say, I wish I had traveled more? And it's like thinking about, it's like, yeah, I can't really. I'm sure there is probably some, as a horror writer, I'm thinking, I'm sure that there's a character in a horror movie who wishes they had bought a new phone. If they're stranded somewhere and they have an old flip phone, they probably wish that they had access to 5G.
Yep.
So there's situations, but yeah, that what you said kind of made me think of that commercial. And I'm sure that there's a way to twist that too. The last thing for me is just that I thought that the film did a really good job with just like the corporate atmosphere. And it's all these really tiny details and just things like how, the manager is a white man and he's in his office, and, and even Harold is a white man. So like the people who are in, the top most power positions in this film are white men, but then in Harold or in Craig's office, you see him like giving himself this pep talk, and behind him is a poster of like diverse women. Just that like
pick up on that,
juxtaposition, and how the seasoned employees will like use the company's jargon against them. As Craig says, "Go, Hunter, go find Gemma." She'll say, "Well, that would compromise the rebuild of my ecosystem." It's things like that. Yeah, I thought that was really well done. And even just, I think James might have mentioned this earlier, but how they're like wheeling the bin with the corpse of Gemma in it. And they say, we take care of our own here at the CCC.
Those scenes are so good. I guess that maybe those employees were out of season. Like, you know?
Wow.
So.
Wow. But this company completely, I mean, it's obvious that it's supposed to be the Gap or any of those other places. But what I got out of this is one of those things, one of those movies where you look at and you're like, there's no way that you can watch this and not get the message as far as how capitalism works, how consumerism works, how exploitation works. And even looking at, some of the things as far as the diversity of the cast, right? You look at this and it's a Canadian film, but it could easily be an American film or a film in the United States, because you're looking at these companies that will probably pride themselves on diversity, right? They'll do something in June for Pride Month. They'll do something for Hispanic Heritage Month, for Asian American Pacific Islander, for Black History Month. They'll do all these things, and Women's History Month, like now. They'll do all these things, right? But then they won't do anything internally, or they'll limit what they do internally to actually include any of these people as management or members of the board or anything like that. Because they will simply point out, like, look, we have, X amount of employees that are of this background. And here's Tony. Tony is an African-American, sales clerk at our store in Jacksonville. And they just show the picture of him looking up for the camera. And then they go to like Janice works in our Chicago store, and they'll do like a little profile on who they are. But then there's nothing beyond the fact that these people work here. So it becomes that great battle of diversity versus inclusion, where diversity is we're looking at how many we have of whatever background it is, versus these are people that actually have a say, that actually are stakeholders here. People actually have, something at stake to, and have a voice, have an opinion within the company.
It's like that bot that was retweeting all of the companies who would put out like an International Women's Day tweet, and it would post what the pay discrepancy was between women and men in their company.
Oh man, that's awesome.
A lot of deleted tweets that day.
But they didn't do anything to fix what was going on in their own companies.
No, they just deleted the tweet, and then they removed the hashtag so the bot couldn't find it.
Clearly, that solves the problem. As long as no one's thinking about the problem, it's gone away. All right. So I have nothing else. So if you guys don't either, we can move into movie recommendations.
Sure.
All right. So Jenny, do you have any movies people should watch if they liked this, or would you like Don to handle it with his never-ending list?
I did think of 3. This is maybe very obscure, but just the way that Gemma was positioned in the cabinet made me think of the opening scene of It Follows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I don't know that they have the similar social commentary aspect. I'm sure somebody could find one in them, but I might recommend Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and Rubber.
Oh, Rubber, 100%. Yeah. That was going to be one of my 2 choices. So that's beautiful. I desperately want to cover Rubber on this show. I think there's a lot to say about it, actually, but yeah. So you did Rubber, so I got to switch it up now. I'm going to go with Killer Sofa. I don't know if either of you have seen Killer Sofa, but
no.
It's another ridiculous premise. And then you're like, holy fuck, what the hell? Like I wouldn't say it's as deep as this one, but there's still a lot going on there. And I don't want to talk about it so I don't ruin it for people who haven't seen it. But yeah, Killer Sofa is mine. Don, what do you got for your, let's go with 57 today. What are your 57 recommendations?
Okay. Someone was having Heinz sauce on their food today.
I went under 100 for once. I mean, you should be impressed.
All right. These are all films with social commentary, horror, or comedy, and some all 3. Fast Food Nation, I would definitely include as far as doing a deep dive into the way that consumerism happens within the food industry at different levels. couple of my favorites from my childhood would be Critters or The Ghoulies. Wolf of Snow Hollow, Scare
Beautiful
Me,
film.
Psycho Goreman,
Mhm.
Cabin in the Woods, Host and Superhost, because Superhost was on as we were logging into Shudder, and there's just a great kill scene in it. And it's fun. Like I started laughing so hard when the kill scene like popped up, because Shudder, they have like whatever their live feed is going, and it just came up, and I'm like, oh my god, that's great. Scare Package, another film that's on Shudder. House, we already talked about Ready or Not, and then last but not least, Terrifier.
Okay, I thought of one more that's maybe like a deep indie cut. It's called Scotland, PA, and it's Macbeth set in a 1970s fast food restaurant.
What?
Interesting.
James, that's right up your alley, man.
It is.
It's got Shakespeare.
Shakespeare Shitstorm comes out soon. I'm excited.
God,
Yeah, it's my favorite Macbeth adaptation. It's got a very similar capitalist social commentary being set in the fast food restaurant.
Beautiful. Don, you actually changed my double feature. I think Psycho Gorman would be amazing watched with this film. Like, that's such a strange thing where they don't seem like they have much to go on together, but I think like the tone of each would work really well together.
And you have two films where somebody is not actually punished for shit that they did.
That little girl. Oh my God.
You learn nothing.
I think my ending note to Slaxx would be that I'm really glad that they went with jeans and not something like a bra, because I think the message would have gotten lost if they had gone with like underwear or a bra or some other more ridiculous type of clothing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. No, I think that's a great place to end. So let's bring it to you. Let's you want to tell people where to find you on social media and all that good stuff?
Sure. You can visit my website at jennykiefer.com and make sure you spell Kiefer. And I'm on Twitter at _Jenny Kiefer. And you can try to keep up with our bookstore at horrorbookstore.com. The actual name of our bookstore will be the Butcher Cabin Books.
Ooh, awesome!
Because the building that it's in used to be a butcher shop.
Oh, that's extra cool.
Yeah, we're trying to find more information about that, and maybe we can even find like some ads or probably not any pictures, as it was in like the early 1900s, but.
No, it's possible you might have some. I would recommend, if you haven't already done so, checking out the archives at whatever local universities are there. Mm-hmm. They may have them.
Our local University of Louisville, has a lot of that stuff, like photos and stuff online. I didn't see anything there, but we still are wanting to look at the library, which has all of the city books. Mm-hmm. City records books, and there's another like historical society I could ask if they know of anything. But
librarians are wizards. Like you just write a librarian and you're like, hey, do you have anything about this? And like 3 hours later, they will have like 600 things for you, and you're like, how did you do this? So
and there's a locked safe in the basement.
Ooh, that's fun.
Maybe we'll try to figure out how to get that open.
Ooh.
And everyone listening, this is how she begins writing the book that comes out 3 years from now. And
I took a picture of the safe to send it to some people, and they're like, "Oh, that's really creepy. It looks like there's like a cross on the door, and like this spot that looks like somebody had scraped at it with their fingernails."
Please send me these pictures. That sounds amazing.
So maybe we shouldn't open the safe.
I mean,
what will we release?
It's 2020 part 3 or whatever we're on.
Leave it in there.
Let's leave it in there. Let's just open it and see what happens.
It's either going to be empty, have like old change, or rotting meat.
If you open it and a dude crawls out and he's like, "Oh, thank goodness, run." Okay,
you're going to open it. It's going to be a pair of jeans.
So everyone listening, feel free to tweet us your ideas of what is hiding in this safe and tag Jenny while you're at it.
Yeah, I'll send you pictures you can post on Twitter.
Sweet.
What's in the safe?
And then you won't know probably for a really long time, because that, like, even just like the knob is gone, the number thing is gone, and it's like all encased in cement. So I don't know how we're gonna get it open.
Leave it alone. Leave it alone. Leave it alone.
I'm not actually advocating for opening it. When I moved into the house I live in one of the closets, there's a 3-piece suit from like a dude, right? And on the back, on painter's tape, they stuck painter's tape on the back and wrote, "This came with the house. It can stay here." I have lived in this house for 9 years and I have never touched that fucking suit. It stays where it's been. So I am not advocating for your safe. So if I won't even touch this, I'm not opening that thing.
We'll let Twitter decide if it should be opened.
Cool. Well, when you do it, let me know so that I can get on a plane and go to whatever's the geographical opposite of where you're opening it.
Well, maybe whatever comes out will just follow you wherever you go.
Sweet.
Very slowly.
All right. On that note, thank you so much for coming on today and talking about Slaxx. We had a great time.
Yeah, it was great.
All right, cool. So I guess that wraps it up for another week. As always, I am James Sabata.
And all I'm saying is just don't open that thing. That's just not a good idea.
And we will see you next week here at thenecronama.com, provided they don't open the safe before then.